Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird, true stories, from glitches to the paranormal.
This is my channel's weekly compendium for the week ending Monday, September 19th, 2022.
Case file number 754, written by Macallan 25 or Bust. Do all dogs go to heaven? I'm an atheist and I largely dismiss the supernatural or plausibility of glitches. For example, I'm the one to watch ghost shows just to see how fake they are. Well, then this happened last week, and well, I just don't know what to think. My girlfriend and I live alone, and up until 2 years ago, we had a small dog, Havanese, that passed at 17 years old, previously my parents' dog. He would always do this thing where he would come up to a door he wanted into, and would scratch it 3 times to be let in. Little bastard destroyed all of our doors, but anyways. Well, on Thursday night, my girlfriend and I were having us time in the bedroom. Then abruptly we heard the same 3 scratches at our bedroom door. Directionally it sounded low to the ground and was the exact same manner as what our dog would do, except he's been dead for 2 years. How is my dead dog scratching my door? Has anyone had experiences with pets glitching or anything similar?
Case notes for file 754. Do all dogs go to heaven? A bit peculiar this one is, mainly because of the time gap. So usually, when a loved one passes away, either a pet or a human being, typically if they come back at all, as a fragment or echo, it's to reassure the person that they were connected to that they're okay, that they're moving on. If they linger around for a long period of time, usually it means that they're intending to haunt or terrorize whoever's inhabiting there. There's a weird time gap here where you mentioned the dog passed away, but it's been years. Why did the dog wait until now? Or maybe you never noticed that your dog was pawing at the door before? Maybe it's been doing this for a long time, or maybe just wasn't able to for some reason. Either way, I wouldn't say there's any threat or that your dog is in pain. Maybe it feels lonely. You know what I would do if this happens again? Open the door. You may feel a presence there. A lot of people report sensing their pet on their bed even after they pass away. Usually cats, but sometimes dogs as well. It's almost as if even the spirit, even though it can phase through the door, doesn't want to come in without permission. That's a well-trained dog you had. Minus destroying the door, of course.
Bonus file, written by Hushaby Secret. The House on Harrison Street. Growing up in the 90s, I spent most of my time outside playing with the neighborhood kids. I didn't live in the greatest neighborhood, so I couldn't go out exploring, but all of my neighbors had kids my age except one. It was an old house with garbage across the yard and stuff piled up so high in the windows that you couldn't see inside. The only noticeable objects were an old Barbie camper and a teddy bear with a missing ear. I knew there was someone that lived there because their ugly, and I mean ugly, red Chevy car would leave the driveway right at noon and wouldn't come back until about 9 p.m. One night it came back, and the next day there was a boy standing in the yard and shouting and waving at me. I was playing in an old dip in my backyard where a tree had been cut down when I saw him. I remember being confused, but I was a kid and was excited to meet someone new that was my age. I found out his name was Brandon, and I would always invite him to play outside after school. My mom didn't question me and my new friend, so she let him come and play in the backyard. I never saw him at school, and he said his grandma taught him from their house. I didn't want to play with the other neighborhood kids as much as I wanted to play with Brandon, so the two of us formed our own little group and we played in that dip in my backyard. Nobody really questioned it until I told my mom that I wanted to have school at my house like Brandon. She finally asked me where I met Brandon, and I told her he lived in the dirty house on Harrison. I remember the look on my mom's face being confused and concerned at first, but then she laughed in my face and told me I was being ridiculous. Brandon was my imaginary friend because nobody had lived in that house since the 70s. I got mad at her and said that I would prove that Brandon was real and that he would be outside the next day. But he never showed up again. I waited for him every day, but I never saw him. Eventually, we moved across town into an apartment and I made new friends and forgot about Brandon. But a few years ago, I felt nostalgic and decided to go for a drive through my old neighborhood. Not much had changed, and seeing the old neighborhood made me happy and brought back a lot of fun memories, until I passed the old house. It was obviously abandoned, but after all these years, the old Barbie camper and the teddy bear with the missing ear were still in the window. I saw that and laughed at how stuck to the idea that my imaginary friend was real, until I saw my ball. An old ball with my name written on it in big black ink was clearly visible from the window. The rainbow colors made it stick out like a sore thumb. I'd lost that ball around the time I'd first met Brandon. Maybe one of the neighbor kids had stolen it years ago and had it hidden away and I was just now noticing it. Maybe Brandon was just a figment of my overactive childhood imagination. Or maybe there was someone watching me back then, and I was too innocent to see anything else other than my new friend. Thinking about it now, it does creep me out, but more than anything, I wish I had answers. If he was real, if he was another kid playing a prank, or if he was a lost spirit, and it bothers me that I'll never have the answers, but I'll always have the memories. As creepy as the memories are, they do make me happy and pique my curiosity.
Case notes for the bonus file, The House on Harrison Street. I was reading the comments in the thread where this was posted, and you mentioned that many of the interactions you had with Brandon were physically manifested, like you dug holes or you climbed fences, things that would require if it was a spirit, to be interacting with the world intently. To dig a hole is no easy feat. So my impression is that this probably was a real boy, perhaps someone in witness protection. If they were in this old house, I wonder how that was working. It could stand to reason that old houses would be used as cover, perhaps safe houses of sorts, and indeed it was occupied. It could even be an adopted child, temporarily adopted. Sometimes there's foster care needs children that go and live temporarily with people that will not fully adopt them but just give them a home temporarily. That may be what happened here, and actually makes a lot of sense because often people are paid to do that. So if someone was living in a dilapidated home, they probably needed money. If not, it probably was a manifested spirit, but a very, very old one. Would have to be very old in order to interact with the real world to the extent you described. If it was a spirit though, why did he mysteriously vanish?
Creepy file number 48, written by Dig-Tac Bro, The Green Woman. When I was a kid, around 7 years old I think, I spent the day at my cousin's house in my old hometown. He lived right in the middle of town, so we could ride our bikes everywhere. This was back in '98, and in the tiny place I come from, everyone knows everyone and keeps an eye out for the safety of any kid they see. When my mom dropped me off at my aunt's house that morning, she gave me some money to be able to go to the corner store for snacks for my cousin and I. After a while, hunger struck and I took off on my bike to Reeves' grocery store. It was the best stocked store in town. There were only 2 stores. Pulling up, I noticed an old maroon-colored car parked outside. Reeves' storefront had a short brick wall about a quarter of the way up, but from the brick up to the roof was all glass. The type of glass you can see through on one side, but is a mirror on the other. I didn't pay much attention to the car at first. I rode up on the sidewalk and gently wrestled the handlebars of my bike against the wall. I hopped off my bike and, by force of habit, looked into the store window. In the reflection behind me, in the old maroon car, sat a little old lady in the passenger seat. She was dressed in all green, dark green, wearing a beret hat, and she had one of those crotcheted Afghan blankets draped around her shoulders. She looked very, very old. Deep wrinkles covered her face to the point that I couldn't even see her eyes, and her skin had a gray tint to it. She smiled sweetly at me in the mirror, but when I turned around to wave and smile back, she wasn't in the car. Confused, I glanced back at the store window, and I could still see her sitting there in the passenger seat, smiling at me. Fight or flight kicked in, and I aborted all thoughts of 3D Doritos and Gatorade and raced off as quickly as I could. I didn't even get on my bike. I grabbed it by the handlebars and pushed it as I ran as fast as my little legs would go. Looking back, the little old lady really seemed to mean me no harm. Her wrinkled face looked kind and her smile was warm. But my 7-year-old brain yelled, "Ghost!" and told me to run. When I told my mom about it a few days later, she told me sometimes spirits get stuck or have unfinished business, so they can't pass on. I remember this encounter fondly these days though, and I wish I could have better reacted to the situation. Maybe I could have helped the green lady somehow.
Case notes for the creepy file number 48, The Green Woman. So first off, no Kit Kat bars? Just Doritos and Gatorade? Come on. No matter what, even if we're talking about spirits or ghosts or glitches, in the end, it's always Kit Kat bars. They come first. I don't care if a demon is chasing after me. I'm getting my delicious chocolate wafers no matter what. You can be sure of that. And I think your mom is correct in that spirits can become attached. If there's echoes of remnants, the souls of people who passed away, for them to remain on Earth bound by gravity and all the effects of it, and even light, in the times where we see them, it means that the EM spectrum light, visible light, is bouncing off them and going back to our eyeballs. And for that to happen, I would imagine there'd have to be something very potent binding them to the planet. About 61 million people die every single year of various causes. Of course, more people are born, so the population still grows, but a lot of people die every single year. I don't think most people know how many people die every year. It's kind of insane to think about it. But yeah, 61 million people die, roughly. Variance by year, of course. And, of course, there's not 61 million echoes or ghosts that are reported all the time. There's a fair bit, but nowhere near 61 million. I mean, I would have more stories than I could read in 1,000 lifetimes if that was the case. No, so they're still somewhat rare, if you know what I mean. Which means there's some sort of trigger. They have to be bound here by some potent, important, emotional connection. Beyond just, oh, well, I mean, I didn't shut off the stove, or I didn't say goodbye to one person. It has to be something truly grinding at their soul, their very essence, or it's not enough. And I'm sure it varies by person. Maybe for some people, it doesn't have to be quite as intense as others, but I think for most people, it needs to be truly remarkably intense and potent. And again, just to stress the rarity of this, I'm 32, and I've never encountered a ghost yet, myself, or even the inclination or the suspicion of a ghost being around. No light flickers, nothing that I can't explain away by old plumbing or anything like that. I mean, I can't wait to experience it if I do, but it does mean they are fairly rare. Or, if there are a lot of them around, most can't or choose not to interact or make themselves known. That's another possibility.
For those who aren't aware, I'm narrating special horror stories on my Patreon and also now on the channel. If you'd like to gain access to these videos, then join up on Patreon, or you can join here on the channel and become a channel member. You get a little banner icon as well next to your name if you ever comment, which is kinda cool. But yeah, the horror stories are really interesting. The latest one is regarding a man and his monster coming back to haunt his son. Case file number 755, written by Kini Ali. Everyone gets a Corvette. A few years ago, my husband and I were driving to Utah from California. We were in the final couple of hours, and it was around 2 a.m., and we were both super tired. It was just us on this lonely stretch of dark, desert road. There was literally nothing surrounding us except flat, dark desert, and that's all we had to look forward to. So it was no wonder we were both starting to struggle to stay awake. After a while, a car came up behind us and passed us. It was a red Corvette, and my husband made a comment around how he hadn't seen a Corvette in a while. But then, maybe 20 minutes later, that same car passed us again. I looked at my husband as if to say, is that the same car? And I thought it was. We ultimately shrugged it off. There hadn't been any exits or pull-offs since they first passed us, but I thought maybe they had pulled off somewhere on the side of the road and we just didn't notice them. Another 10 to 15 minutes pass, and the exact same car passes us again. We both were in disbelief. The stretch of road was still the same. There wasn't anywhere they could have pulled off or we wouldn't have been able to see them. I knew it was the same car from the license plate because it had the initials DC on it, and it had a Denver, Colorado license frame, and I had just mentally connected that. The car passed us one final time when we were about an hour away from the city, and needless to say, we weren't sleepy anymore.
Case notes for file 755. Everyone gets a Corvette. So at first I'd say, okay, this is a no rendering perception glitch. So in video games, if you're looking in a specific segment or block of area of the world, the other areas aren't loaded. This helps to save on RAM, deal with memory leaks and processing power overall. it makes sense if this is a simulation that they would operate on a similar principle because it saves on a lot of memory and processing time. Why not? However, this could only work if the driver of that Corvette didn't truly exist in the sense that we are animated, the sense that we're connected, we're real players in the game, instead of NPCs. And some people throw that term around derogatorily, like saying, oh, you're just an NPC, you're not really thinking. But I mean it in a more literal sense, that some or maybe most people are just compelling illusions of sorts. Sort of like in Westworld, where there's androids that impersonate human beings so accurately that it's almost impossible to tell. And I mean, if this is a simulation, I'm sure that wouldn't be too difficult to do, especially if you have enough machine AI learning via enough real human beings programmed into the game. The simulation could learn from them and adapt in real time. So that would be the only way. Otherwise, it would be a person that's really there animated. Like, imagine you're the glitch of that Corvette and you're driving and you're passing the same car again and again and again, wondering, why the hell am I rewinding in space and time? This doesn't make any sense. I guess that's another possibility. Maybe that person driving the Corvette was in some sort of space-time loop and was just rewinding and was going crazy, thinking, hey, I'm seeing the same car again and I'm not getting any closer to the city. What's going on? So it's one of those two. Either it's proof of NPC existence or some sort of space-time anomaly that for some reason you didn't interact with, even though you were going in the same direction. Which is why I'm leaning more towards the NPC theory, because you probably would have interacted with it too if it was some sort of physical anomaly.
Case file number 756, written by Ocean and Sun. The Aqua has vanished. I literally just filled up my water bottle about half an hour ago. I specifically remember doing it because I was looking at the dishwasher as I was filling it up, looking at the dishes that needed to be unpacked. Then my water bottle overflowed and I put the lid on. After that, I made my breakfast. Whilst making my breakfast, it was sitting at the end of the bench. After I made my breakfast, I grabbed it and sat down, ate my breakfast. And when I finished eating my breakfast, I went to have a drink of water, and it was completely empty. I know I didn't drink it because I was busy making my breakfast. But also, even if I happened to have a sip and forgot about it, it's a 500 milliliter water bottle, so no way I could have finished it or even half of it, as I don't like drinking a lot in one go. Also, I don't know if it matters, but it's a metal water bottle, so I can't see what's inside. But I know I filled it up because I saw it overflow out of the top. And it's not broken or anything, it didn't leak, so I'm so confused. Only explanation is a glitch in the system.
Case notes for file 756. The Aqua has vanished. So I know what you mean when you say you couldn't have accidentally, absent-mindedly drunk the entire bottle of water. For me personally, I have issues drinking enough water. I mean, it's just not exciting, right? You gotta force yourself to do it. Maybe I'll take a sip here, but I wouldn't accidentally drink an entire bottle and forget about it, barring some sort of medical condition. No, I typically just drink a lot of Dr. Pepper, Diet Dr. Pepper, but still, quite a bit. But this is a new one. Or maybe I think I've narrated one other glitch where it was liquid disappearing. But how is that even possible? Is it some sort of entity that's snatching up the water bottle, draining the liquid into that phase or dimension, and then returning the water bottle? Why do they want water? Do they not have water in this fifth dimension? I guess they were just thirsty.
Case file number 757, written by Commander Smokestack. My home key became another key. Basically, for the last 5 years, I've had a key ring with only 3 keys on it. It had my car key, my house key, and the extra key to my kid's truck. About a year and a half ago, I added a Lego minifig keychain. Otherwise, it's been the same 3 keys for the last 5 years. I use it almost every day. I've taken it all over the world with me when I travel because I use it to get into my house when I get home. I used it to get into my house last night. I had to pop out this afternoon, grab my keys, wallet, and phone, locked up and left. When I got home, I tried to use a key to unlock my front door, and it didn't work. I tried the door lock and the deadbolt, same key, and no luck. So I popped open the garage door to use the other door to get into the house. That door was locked, again, same key, and it didn't work. At this point, I was pretty dumbfounded because the one house key on my keyring isn't working. Eventually, I was able to get into the house through a window, so I got that going for me. The key still didn't work though. I found and tested my spare key and it works. Key on my keychain sorta looks like my spare key. It's the same type of key but has a slightly different notch. Consequently, I'm a little weirded out that the house key on my keychain isn't my house key anymore. The key pattern on the house key attached to my keychain and the spare key that works are different. The key on my keychain and the spare that works are two different keys with two different patterns. The difference isn't where. The key on my keychain has a shorter pattern than the one that works on the house.
Case notes for file 757. My house key isn't my house key anymore. So somehow this house key morphed into a different one. It wasn't switched out or anything, obviously it wasn't a prank. And the other key you do have still works for the doors, so something was actually physically altered. The only thing I'm really getting at is maybe quantum immortality. You died, you're in a new universe, you know the deal, and now you had this set of keys that's for something else. I wonder if you'd be able to find what it's for, if this is indeed what happened. That key does work properly for something else. For some reason you have the same keychain, you're just using it to store a key that's for something else. I wonder what it's for. It would be something very important to you. At least the you that was in that universe. It shouldn't be too dissimilar, so I don't know if you have something else that is really important that you keep locked up. Maybe try the key on that. It may actually work.
Case file number 758. Written by Concert Sufficient 966. A very wet quantum immortality. A friend of mine who's always talking about metaphysics, Twilight Zone simulation type stuff, loves this type of stuff and keeps telling me to post this. In fact, no doubt he'll see this. Hey Zane. Anyways, here's my story. 2 weeks ago, I was about to get ready for a party at 6. Just before I started to get ready, one of my friends messaged me, super excited because of a boy she's had a crush on for the last 4 years finally asked her out. And he was coming with her to the party. While I was texting her back, my younger brother walked into my room and asked if I could drive him to his friend's house, which I agreed to do. Then I went to the bathroom to have a shower and to do my makeup. So I got into the shower, but when I went to wash my hair, I realized that my conditioner was finished. I was pretty ticked off because I had only bought it a couple days beforehand and it's an expensive brand. My younger sister always uses up my thing, so I knew she'd used it all. She'd also trashed the bathroom, leaving water everywhere and her dirty towel on the floor. Naturally, I was pissed off, and I was about to get out of the shower in order to tell her off and to get some more conditioner. But as I went to get out, I realized at the last second that she'd kicked out the grippy mat that we have on the bottom of our shower tub. Our shower tub is super slippery without the grip mat. So as I went to step out, my foot slipped, and I fell with my neck down onto the edge of my tub. Time seemed to slow down in my head, and I remember my last thought was, wow, is this how I die? How stupid. But here's the thing. At the moment of impact, I woke up back in my bed. I know it sounds stupid and cheesy, like something from a dumb Netflix show, but there's literally no other way to describe what happened. I was lying in bed right before I got up to shower the first time, but I don't remember falling asleep. And the thing is, I've been a lucid dreamer for the last 5 years or so. And if this was a dream, it was way more vivid than anything I've ever experienced prior. What weirded me out though, was that the exact same friend who texted me the first time, messaged me after I woke up to tell me that the boy she had a crush on had asked another girl out. And she was pretty bummed out about it and didn't want to come to the party. I was weirded out that there was some similarity between that and the dream, but didn't think too much of it at first. As I went to reply, my younger brother came in to ask if I would take him to his friend's house. All the blood drained from my face. He just stood in the doorway looking confused and asked me what was wrong. I rushed into the bathroom, feeling like I was losing my freaking mind, and went to check the conditioner bottle. I know this sounds completely crazy, but the bottle was finished just like before, and the grip mat was kicked up. At that point, I went to lie back down in bed and texted my friends to tell them that I wouldn't be going to the party because they don't even understand how I'm alive.
Case notes for file 758. A very wet quantum immortality. So first off, I really hate messiness and disorder. So your sister sounds like a terror to live with. I don't know, it's hard to process that. If you live in a messy environment, then you can't process your own reality. It's like manifesting your own disorder. Like, we all have chaos in us, but if we let it escape into the real world, then it compounds on itself and amplifies until it becomes this mountain that you can't escape from. Like the people who are hoarders. I have no idea how they function, and honestly, they don't. That's the problem. So I try to keep my place as tidy as I can, and also I'm a minimalist, which just means that I try not to buy things or use things that I don't need. I only engage with things that will benefit me, at least as far as I can tell. That's the idea. Keep your life simple and manageable, and don't let disorder ruin it. Now to the glitch. This does happen quite a few times where quantum immortality events translate into a time rewind. So you reset back in time a few minutes prior to taking the shower. And my theory on that is, when we die, our soul has to go to a different universe if there's another copy of us that exists somewhere. But it has to be the closest one. Maybe this is some sort of power issue related to the simulation. Transferring a soul further is just more expensive in terms of energy or processing time. So you go to the nearest universe, and sometimes if in that universe you did die too, then it just rewinds to a few moments before, and then, well, you still have the memories of what happened, so you don't make the same mistakes, which is rather nice.
Bonus file. Written by A Paradise Circus. An old lady. The Multiverse Queen. I'm gonna cut straight to the chase on this one. About 2 weeks ago, I had just finished returning a pair of headphones to Big Lots because they were child-sized. When I walked out of the store, this older woman walked into Big Lots. We passed each other outside. I enjoy complimenting random strangers when I go out, and so I commented to her that I like her dress. It was a pretty dress. She said, "Thank you, I like your pants." I had on these rather boho pants that day. Anyway, I got in my car and instantly drove to Goodwill to see if there was anything worthwhile there. I'm opening up a holistic center, and I like to check Goodwill to see if there's anything I can use. When I enter the store, I instantly walk towards the back, bypassing all the clothes. Then, I see the same older woman wearing the same dress with a shopping cart of a few miscellaneous things she found in Goodwill. I did not stop at any other stores between Big Lots and Goodwill. I did not take a while in my car. I instantly started it and drove down the road to Goodwill. It's only about 2 minutes away by car. I made a right-hand turn onto Transit after leaving Big Lots and a right-hand turn into the parking lot where Goodwill is. The time that elapsed between seeing the woman entering Big Lots and seeing her in Goodwill had to have only been 5 minutes. Even if she instantly turned around and left the store, it makes no sense that she would have not only gotten there before me, but also had enough time to shop. She had about 3 to 4 things. I did not notice any time lapse. I do recall looking at the clock before I left Big Lots, and then when I arrived, as the car was shutting off, she didn't speak to me. She saw me though, and she didn't blink twice. No acknowledgement.
Case notes for the bonus file, the Multiverse Queen. So there are 2 plausible explanations for this. The first is that she indeed just left the Big Lots really quickly for some reason, and then drove like a bat out of hell to Goodwill and beat you there. It's unlikely, very true, but it's not impossible. The other possibility is that she has a twin sister. And this is more common than you might expect. It's about 1 in 250 births have twin sisters. Or twins in general, not just sisters. And I mean identical, not just twins that sort of look the same. Of course, this doesn't make it exactly an easy explanation, because even if she has a twin, why would she be there too? I guess it's possible that they stick around each other close by and we're going to shop in different stores and they just, oh, we'll split our load and I'll go here, you go there. I could see that, sure. And third explanation, that is a glitch, is a new universe. So you died while driving, which is actually pretty common. It's funny, where the most likely explanation is that you died. We kind of treat death a bit lightly around here, don't we? Yeah, so you died and now this is what happened and, no big deal. Anyways, so you died while driving there, which is very likely. Not very likely, but certainly possible. In this other universe, very similar. The old lady is still around, but she just was in Goodwill instead of Big Lots. I could see that. Absolutely. There was no time lapse, although that wouldn't really mean anything, as we just covered in a previous story where sometimes time can rewind if it has to. So if this is what happened, you were in a different universe, and in that one you just didn't die at all, whatever car accident you got into in the original universe, and these are the possibilities. There's also the possibility of it being a doppelganger, but typically when I read doppelganger stories, there's some sort of atmosphere, something is wrong, like the aura of the doppelganger is all off, and you know, this isn't right, I shouldn't be around this thing. I'm not quite leaning towards that, but I also wouldn't discount it. It's fun to consider all possibilities, just in case.
Case file number 759, written by Anonymous. I defeated the void. In my parents' house, things always go missing. It kind of just became a common occurrence. Before I was born and my brother was 2, my mom's makeup started disappearing and she found them years later on top of the kitchen cupboards in impossible to reach corners. Things that I had just put down on the table or side, etc. would vanish, and after I've looked all around the house, I would go back to where I thought I put them and they'd be there again. The one time and coincidence that stands out to me is when I was looking for my necklace before leaving the house. I had taken it off the previous afternoon and placed it somewhere, although I just couldn't find it. I was on my own as everyone else had already left for work. I had been looking for a few good minutes and I was frustrated. While standing in the middle of the kitchen, I said into the void, "Could you please give me back my necklace?" Literally, as soon as I finished that sentence, I heard a thunk of metal in the living room. I walked over and there was my necklace, just on the floor, about 50 centimeters away from the nearest shelf. I was a bit dumbfounded, and I was in a hurry, so I just said, thank you, I guess, and ran off to college. Nobody was in that room. There was no draft or breeze or anything that could have knocked it off the shelf. It wasn't at an impossible distance for it to have fallen, but it was a very unlikely one. Paired with this even more unlikeliness of it falling right as I asked for it. So if your things go missing, maybe try asking for them back.
Case notes for file 759. I defeated the void. Okay, so this is a new twist on it. We have disappearing object phenomena, and now, apparently, we can just ask for our stuff back. I never even thought to ask. Universe? Entities? Can I have my tennis balls back? Apparently not. Maybe you have to be in the same place as where they disappeared from, or in the general vicinity. Whoever took my tennis balls is long gone by now. I hope they have fun with them.
Bonus file, written by Doc Juji McFly, the Bioluminescent Entity. Quick backstory. I, 27 female, live on an 80-acre farm that has been in my family since the 1870s. I grew up here since I was a baby. I've encountered many spirits on this land. Most of them are friendly, such as ancestors and animals. Other people have noted paranormal encounters on this property, and we have family lore about many of the ghosts. In addition, I consider myself an amateur medium, as certain spirits have given me messages to share with their loved ones. So, I have experience with these things, but what I saw last night baffled me. I thought I had seen it all. Nope. I stayed up late last night doing my nails and watching documentaries. Around 2 a.m. I got tired and decided to go to sleep. I was the only one home last night, so I walked through the house locking up and turning off lights. Our farm is in a very rural area, and my bedroom window faces a cow pasture. There are no visible lights outside after we turn ours off. It gets pitch dark. Country dark, as some say. So imagine my surprise when climbing into bed and seeing what looked like a person with a high-vis flashlight standing in the field outside my window. The light was bright enough that I could make out some of the trees along the fence row. I sat up in bed and leaned forward to get a closer look. I could make out the figure of a woman walking towards the creek in the pasture. Only she wasn't holding a light. She was glowing from head to toe. A yellow golden glow. It was like bioluminescence. My heart stopped and I was frozen. I stared at her in shock for at least a full minute. A full-bodied apparition moving plain as day. First she was walking, then skipping, then dancing towards the creek. It looked like she was wearing a bonnet and a dress. I finally got the courage to get out of bed and go to the window to get a closer look. When I got to the window, she was gone. I got back in bed and looked out the window again. She was gone without a trace. I haven't seen her again, yet. I have no explanation as to what this was, and it shocked and scared me. Has anyone else seen or heard of glowing, full-bodied apparitions?
Case notes for the bonus file, the bioluminescent entity. So first I just want to mention to anyone who doesn't know, there's a map you can Google. It's just a light pollution map. And on it you can see different classes of night sky based on light pollution. So class 1 to all the way to class 9. Class 1 is where there's the least amount of light pollution, which you only really get in like Antarctica or the deep of the Atlantic Ocean. But you can generally find class 2 areas in the United States, and it's a vista that you can't even fathom. You can see, I mean, if you go out, if you live in like a suburb or a city, you can go out and you can see some stars at night. It's still nice, absolutely. But when you go into the deep of class 2, or even class 3, you can see almost the entire galaxy. It opens up your soul to the possibilities of the deep wonder out there. And I highly recommend it. If anyone hasn't seen the night sky in its proper glory without all the light rays scattering in the atmosphere from our technology, which is awesome, but it removes this option from seeing how beautiful the universe is, and truly how vast, unimaginably vast. You gotta see it. And also, bring marshmallows and light a campfire, because nothing beats a night sky, cool air, crisp, and fire-roasted marshmallows. Bring some graham crackers and chocolate too, and make a s'more. Nothing's better than that. Well, no, bring a hot chocolate too. Can't go wrong with all that. So, dare I say it, aliens? There are animals on Earth that are bioluminescent. So the idea that there could be some sort of alien that naturally has bioluminescence, it's not inconceivable. Perhaps from a planet that doesn't get as much light, so they had to make their own, in a sense. Or even a deliberate genetic alteration on their part. That said, given how you describe it, probably not. An alien wearing a bonnet and a dress, frolicking in the night air, probably definitely a spirit. But yeah, I've never heard of a spirit that's so glowing with energy. And we've all heard of the ball essence energy, but that's typically bluish, not yellow and golden. And doesn't typically take shape and form like a human being. It's just a ball of energy floating around. So this is definitely a different twist, a fully manifested human form that is yellow and white in its golden glow. The possibility that it's an alien is diminishing as rapidly as my mood after I finish the last slice of pizza. You know, just gotta order another one, I guess.
Bonus file, written by Arkimri, an angel within the light. Last year, my dad passed away. He had 2 types of cancer at the same time. 2 weeks before he passed away, we drove to a hospital, my mom, dad, and me. At the time, we thought that he probably wouldn't return from the hospital. At some point of the journey, my mom asked my dad while crying that if it happens, show us a sign that he is in a good place. My dad said okay. He passed away 2 weeks later in a hospital, with the family being there, holding his hand while it happened. I remember that night, I was the last one to go to sleep, and the living room was obviously completely dark. But the next morning, something happened. My dad had a favorite painting in the living room, made by a famous painter who is his childhood friend. The painting portrays an angel, but it can only be seen if the painting is lit from the right angle. My dad showed this painting to every guest, explaining that it was an angel on it, and bought a special lamp so that the angel can be more easily visible. The switch is in a remote place, so I can't really switch it on accidentally. I was the first one to wake up the next morning, and the second was my mother. She sat in front of me and asked, "Did you turn that on?" I didn't understand what she was talking about, so I looked. The angel was lit up. Me being a logical person, immediately I tried to find a logical explanation. However, I couldn't find any. Sometimes it's better if there is none. Feel free to share your thoughts and/or similar experiences.
Case notes for the bonus file, The Angel Within the Light. So I do agree that sometimes, as much as I, from an outside perspective, love to ponder and speculate on the causes and rational explanations for all these glitches, either if they're mundane or, actual supernatural explanations. Sometimes if it's happening to you, an explanation isn't needed. What's needed for you is closure. Your dad fulfilling the promise he made in the car, to let you know that he's okay. But honestly, in short, I'm just so happy that your dad was able to give you the sign for your mother too. That's great.